everyone. Welcome to our regular podcast, Nuraldeen. Today, we are happy enough to have with us Jyoti Rahman and also Shafiqul Islam Bhai is with us today. And first, let me remembering the land we are staying in here, Australia, the land I am staying here, and also remembering the old past and present, the people who were the actual owner of this land. And as you all know, that we have faced a July uprising. From there, I also want to remembering our martyrs, also remembering the people and the youth who have died for us, who have died for the freedom and the democracy of Bangladesh. Each and every one I'm remembering in our this program. All right, let's start our program. So basically, today we want to have discussion in two parts. One part is the existing political propaganda that is all in the air, online and offline. If I more specify, it looks like that Indian media is leading the propaganda process through their electronic media and also online media. This is one aspect. And the second part, we really want to narrow down the political narrative that Awami League as a political party has defined, created, and developed from 1971 to till now, the political narrative of our freedom fight, the political narrative of our independence. So these are the two areas that we are going to discuss, and we will try to debunk the thought and the we will try to contradict and diction whatever is happening at this moment in terms of rumor, information, propaganda, also the political narratives. So let me start with the Shafiqul Islam Bhai. Shafiq Bhai, if I start with you, or no, let me go with the Jyoti Rahman Bhai because I want to start with the propaganda aspects. Jyoti Bhai, it's a very simple question. What types of propaganda we are observing at this moment in the online, also in electronic media and online media? And what was the reason to you? What do you think?
Thank you, Dilshana. Good question. So, from 5th August on, or even before, the monsoon uprising in Bangladesh and the interim government that had come to power after that, and the pro-democracy efforts have faced enormous array of propaganda, a lot of it coming from India, a lot of it propagated by Indian Indian outlets and so on, but not exclusively. A lot of this has also taken hold in the West as well. A few themes emerge. From very early on, a concerted push was made to portray the minority communities in Bangladesh to be in severe danger. So this was one element. From basically within hours after Hasina fled, these things started coming up. A different element, related but different element, was that, and that had continued even when Hasina was in power, was that the whole movement, whole uprising, was being led by the Islamists, and that this is, there are Pakistani agents in play, at play, or that it is Jamaat or Hizb ut-Tahrir or other, ISIS or others. So that's another element, that this is an, it's Islamist coup or Islamist push. A third element, which is again somewhat different, related but different, is that Hasina was toppled by a military coup, and that the military coup was with either tacit or direct U.S. intervention. Okay, so sort of there's one element which is that minorities are in danger because Awami League is not power. This is one set of propaganda. A related propaganda is that this is Pakistan or Jamaat or Hizb ut-Tahrir or other Islamists. Sort of depending on who you listen to, the exact bogey varies, but it's an Islamist thing. So this is the second element. Third element is no, this is all US. Using the army, using UNOS. This is a US power play. And then in some wild version of all of this, it's Americans and the Islamists and everything all rolled into one. And so you have to have a really strong imagination to believe that Americans and Islamists and all of that are working to unseat Hasina. But a lot of people take this thing seriously. A couple of examples. I'll give you two examples. So right after within the first few hours after Hasina fled, the crowd spontaneously um, attacked or tore down statues of Sheikh Mujib. And this is something I'm sure we're going to come back to later. But Sheikh Mujib's statues were seen as symbol of despotism under Hasina, right? Hasina's rule was based or legitimized by using Sheikh Mujib as a cult figure. And therefore, as soon as Hasina fled, public anger was directed at those statues and so on, right? And similarly, Sheikh Mujib's house in Dhanmondi came under attack, right? This was anger, public anger. Just happens to be that next to Sheikh Mujib's house, a famous musician lives called Rahul Anand. Is and he had a large collection of musical instruments in his house. Because Mujib's house was attacked and burned or set on fire, happens to be that the next door neighbor is a musician and his musical instruments got burned. Okay. Now this individual happens to be of Hindu community, right? As in it happens to be that he's not a Muslim. But his house was not attacked because he was Hindu. His house was not attacked at all. It was an unfortunate accident, right? That the crowd attacked Mujib's house because of what that stood for, right? But the whole thing was portrayed as if Hasina has fled, Bangladesh is being taken over by these religious zealots, these fundamentalists, these communal forces, and so on. And that's why they are burning down this poor musician and his 100 instruments, which is not at all what happened. So that's one example I'm giving. There are other examples like that. I can come back. A very different example. There is a rumor going around in social media which made it to a State Department press conference when somebody actually asked the US government that apparently since the fall of Hasina on the 5th of August, 3,000 police officers have been killed. Okay, just to put that in context, official death toll of people killed by Hasina's regime during July uprising is around 2,000. Okay, so and now there's this propaganda that 3,000 police have been killed since 5th of August. I mean, now we live in a time where the propaganda, online propaganda, misinformation, disinformation. I mean, we all know these things have global effects, right? But this is the kind of stuff we're talking about, right? So today I start a rumor. Tomorrow you take that and you mention it in an
Yeah, the
article,
additional
and day
question was
after it
that.
becomes official. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Jyoti Bhai, just interrupting
Yeah.
you. Like, as per my understanding, I get the notion that why Awami League as a political party need this binary or need this propaganda of attacking this Hindu minority and also the uprising of the Islamist fundamentalist. So these are the binary that always Awami League need for just for their operation or for the justification of their state's operation or for the justification of whatever they are doing. So these are the binary which was feeding our Malik government as a fascist regime, as a oppressor. That was completely his feeding policy. He get life within this binary. Okay, the progressive versus fundamentalism, the Hindu minority or the Malik is the only savior of this Hindu minority. I get that one. Okay, this is the binary. So even though, like, even our Hindu community also know that the practicality that Awami League is perceiving this thing or feeding this thing just to be in the power. Subconsciously or consciously, they know this thing. Still, why they don't believe that this regime, Hasina regime, or what are the aspects of their thought also that we know that these are the binary existing there. So from there, the disinformation always take the fuel from there. But still, what were, if I put you the international context, if I put you in there, then how do you perceive this binary in the context of Bangladesh? Everyone knows, and the binary existing in the Bangladeshi context, but what is happening in the international context? Okay, how are these, like, how do I call you? How are these influential countries or the diplomatic policy people, they are taking this notion? Jyoti bhai.
Uh, so there are two elements to this, right? So one is that facts have to speak for themselves on the ground, facts on the ground. And this is why this Durga Puja was of such critical importance, right? That we know that Bangladesh police were criminalized under Hasina, and police basically melted away. So we know that there is massive problem in that area, right? We know that the civil administration had been politicized, and therefore, is not functioning very well after the revolution, right? Against that backdrop, if there were violent incidents during the Durga Puja, which is the largest religious festival or social festival, it's more than just religious. It's like, for the Hindu communities in Bangladesh and their neighbors in Bangladesh, it's a huge festival, right? And if during that festival, if that festival was marred by violence, then that would establish this propaganda that, look, now I stress here that such violence actually indeed took place under Hasina, under Awami League in 2021. But if something like that happened ever again in Bangladesh, or particularly in this Durga Puja, that would establish this line, this propaganda that, look, after Hasina, Bangladesh is not safe. So this was a test, and the interim administration put all efforts. And in fact, it was not just government. There was a widespread popular understanding across all political parties, all democratic political parties, including the Islamists, all sort of sectors of society, all segments of the society across the country, in Dhaka, in Chittagong, in smaller towns. There was an understanding that, look, we have to make sure that this puja season is festive. It's not marred by violence. It's not marred by communal discord and so on. And then it turned out that this is actually this had been, by all accounts, one of the more peaceful, puja season in many years. So that should help establishing, or that should help countering this line of propaganda. So that's one side of things. The other side of thing, long historical, so other part of your question, that, okay, the community, Hindu community knows that, Awami League plays these propaganda games. Subcontinent has a long history of Hindu-Muslim problems. There is no denying of that either, right? That's there's bad history, historical context, and we cannot get away from that. So we need to remember that as well. And we also need to understand that the pro-democratic parties need to step up, and when elections come and when democracy is restored, that pro-democracy parties need to step up and say that, look, this country belongs to everybody. It is a Muslim majority country, but it's not an Islamic country, or that it's not a theocracy. So those conversations need to happen. We need to we all need to do our part for that, right? So that's a longer term thing, right? Because if we fail to do that, then that will also again give Awami League their chance to sell their propaganda again and again.
What do you think? Why this police propaganda, the propaganda that 3,000 police have been killed with this? Why, from where this is, came out, and why? Why they need this specific propaganda?
This to be honest with you, this came as a huge surprise to me as well, because this is a new set of lies, and seemingly from nowhere. But if you think about it, there may be couple of different possibilities here. And again, for now, for this one, I'm speculating, because this is a new set of lies that has come up. uh, One issue could be that they are simply trying out different things and see which one sticks. So they tried the Hindu card. That was the most obvious one from the narrow political perspective, from Indian government's domestic political perspective, because BJP, as we all know, is a Hindu nationalist party, and they have a number of elections in India, state elections. A few has happened. I think one more is coming up in Maharashtra in a few weeks. It's a big state. So to say that, look, Hindus are endangered in Bangladesh always plays well for BJP. So Hindu card, we understand why that was played. The and sort of we'll talk about the Mujib 71, sort of those kind of issues shortly. The police card probably came up. So you'd remember about a week ago, there was uh, three individuals were arrested in Feni, which is a town in southern Bangladesh, between Dhaka and Chittagong, somewhere there. So three individuals were arrested, seemingly allegedly for killing police or burning police stations during the uprising. The context here was that yes, sort of hundreds of thanas, police stations, were attacked during uprising because police was the instrument of oppression and criminality at the local level. So when three individuals were arrested for sort of that, while many of the killers, most of the killers, people who killed for Hasina are still at large, this created a huge outcry, right? And this was followed by an indemnity ordinance. Government decreed that the the people who participated in the movement, sort of should not be prosecuted to the extent that they participated in the political uprising, in the July monsoon uprising, right? So this is uh, against that background, this rumor that 3,000 police might have been killed. Um, I'm speculating here, but my sense is that this is to sow discord within law enforcement, that the new government is trying to recreate or reform or reestablish. This is to sow discord in the civil administration, again, something that the new government, interim government, is trying to reform and sort of to recreate, to revive. So that may be an element. I think Shafiq probably has.
Yeah, Shafiq Bhai most probably wanted to add something. Shafiq Bhai.
Yeah, I have a take on this, this police propaganda, killing of police. Uh, at the end of the July, I noticed in my discussion boards with our batchmates and different groups that we all inhabit in WhatsApp, that people, those who are Awami League supporters, those who are just trying to justify the police crackdown, the killing of the protesters, on the police have been murdered too. I think do you remember the exact date when the Jatrabadi police killing took place? Like when some police were killed and like they were hanged by the
4th of August.
flyover. Do you
4th
remember
of
the
August.
exact date?
4th. 4th of August.
4th of August. 4th of August, most really, if we are not wrong.
Was it? But didn't any killing took place in July? Police killing or?
Yes, most really 29th of July, one happened on Gajipur one.
That's right.
That, and yeah, on there,
Yeah.
most really. 29th
29th
of
of July,
July
there was
or
that's
31st
right.
July, something
Yeah.
like
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So end of July, particularly, I saw that even before Hasina fell, that immediately came before that the protesters are killing police too. And so they were trying to justify this, like that's why the police were killing. So, like they were trying to get that this is not an equal, this is not a, like a one-sided affair. This is like a violence taking place from both sides. And so, like when Hasina fell, number one, this was already a ready-made propaganda tool. On their other hand, that this justifies them, because why did the Hasina's police were so bloody, so like bloody during the July uprising? So this was the kind of justified because they were threatened before. Like we know that propaganda. So to embellish that, we know that some attacks, like attacks on the police thanas, happened all over the country, and it was natural because like we think it's rightly the police has been the face of Hasina regime in the last 5 years at least. Like it was a direct face. Everybody know that they are the foot soldiers of this regime. So like the maximum hatred of people were directed at the police, not even against Awami League leaders per se. Like they were more hateful of the police than the Awami League political leaders. So this would have naturally occurred. So some extent it happened. So they just embellished it to make up a number, and we know that that number is totally bogus. And but it's a useful propaganda tool for them because they want to say that like in Bangladesh, like in July and August, it was like a bloody affair that where the miscreants attacked the state apparatus too, and Hasina probably they will try to justify that Hasina just resigned and fled to spare Bangladeshis of further bloodshed or something like that. They will try to say, yeah, I have seen already propaganda like that, like that Hasina fled because she doesn't want to prolong this bloody confrontation. Uh, yeah. So that's one tool. And another thing, like although it's not remotely similar, but we know that like when the Shapla mass killing happened, that like Hefajat people immediately took it upon that there was thousands of thousands people killed in the Shapla massacre. We know that it was a very bloody massacre, but like independent investigations and everything found that the number of people killed in that crackdown is probably between 50 to 100, not more than that. But the propaganda of like thousands were students were killed in that night persisted among Hefajat and those who are like among their like-minded people for a long time. So there's like a certain kind of parallel to that because they want to use this to like keep their followers uh, revitalized. And of course, Jyoti has said that this is a very important tool because they see that if they can undermine the police, we know the police is the most vital, one of the most vital part of the administration in a country like us. So if they can undermine the morale of the police, sow discord between the police and the interim government, so that would be just a plus benefit to them. So it's a very useful tool for them, this propaganda. So whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It's very useful to
And
Yeah.
them.
with that, Dilshana, if I could just add another thing, that at the moment there is also all sorts of propaganda, not just necessarily from the Awami League or fallen, Hasina's side, but from all quarters, right? About all sorts of things that could create instability in the country. And so that is also, sort of there are propaganda from the Islamist sides. There are propaganda from people who were solidly pro-democratic, but they feel that the administration is not meeting their aspirations, and it could be, sort of legitimate
Yeah,
aspirations.
but
So we need to also mark,
Jyoti,
various, yeah,
yeah, I think you
yeah.
are missing very important part of this propaganda, like the A team, the leading of Awami League online activist. Why? Man, this is the first and foremost thing we need to mention that Awami League has a very paid political online activist group who call themselves A team. This is declared, and from that factory, hundreds of propaganda material is spreading in the online, and these are the sources and origin of the propaganda. The next stage is that all this information, how do people perceive, and how does this information making people confusion? I think, to me, the reason of this disinformation and misinformation, the one point is major, that is confusing people all sorts of people, all sorts of stakeholders, make them confused. If I'm confused, then it's things become really harder to take decision or take a standpoint. This is one thing. And when they brought up the police disinformation, the misinformation, I mean the 3,000 police dead, killed, to me it more like nullified the spirit of July. Then they're just putting these two killed all together, like the entire 21 days, one armed force of a democratic states straight away killed their unarmed citizens who are aged 14 to 24. If we think in that span, the intensity of the incident, the weight and the heaviness of the incident, so that just to lighten up the issue, just to lighten up the
Absolutely.
concept of the
Yeah.
killing of the mass people, they are bringing up this, okay, 3,000 police also dead, 2,000
Yeah.
unarmed civilian
2,000
dead,
students got
3,000.
killed, so 3,000 police. Yeah,
3,000 police is killed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it should nullify the concept of the killing the unarmed people. And one thing I really want to mention in here, like the 21 days horror that we have been seeing on the July, like that's a state apparatus. We are calling it police. But the act they are doing, it's a completely criminal act.
Absolutely.
What they did, it's a crime. It's completely crime against humanity. Only because they are the legitimate force of a state, we are we need to follow so much procedure and process to define it and identify it as a crime, and to define it and identify these 800 police and the people who give the order, Sheikh Hasina regime and the DB police, as a criminal, only because they uphold the position of the states. This is so unfair thing. These are the unfair dimension of the so-called states policy and process that is happening in the third world country like Bangladesh Hasina regime, that whatever he did, only because they have the entitlement to run the country and state. That's the only reason we cannot tell them they are the criminal. The whole force did a crime because they are upholding some policy. At the same thing, the disinformation, you will call it disinformation. To me, it sounds more naive. Whatever India is doing, that is information crime. That is information terrorism. And they're doing as a BJP government and their media, all they are doing, the spreading this information or disinformation. Or to me, it's my personal opinion, I'm not putting responsibility to anyone or any platform. To me, it's completely information war. We are in an information war, and they're leading the work. They are conducting the work because they want to have their hands and hold on Bangladesh as an imperialist country. To me, it's nothing but a weapon of imperialist country of India to restore his operation, to still keep her hands and hold on Bangladesh. This disinformation, misinformation is to me a tools that is happening in here. So yeah, if I or we would stop this propaganda issue in here and go back to our next stage, only if you two don't
Just
want to.
very,
Yeah,
very quickly, just I
what do I
forgot to
want
add
to add?
another element here.
Yes,
That like
please.
I have also seen references that some of the propaganda are coming from Russia, as in like we all know that the Russians are sort of super expert at like disinformation, misinformation, propaganda war, and they may be in play. And another element here is that we also know that Awami League had plundered a lot of money and siphoned it abroad. Right? We know that that's a fact. And like Bangladesh Bank is formally trying to get some of that money back from the plundered banks. It's quite possible that some of that money has actually gone on to to create these kind of things, right? To create online propaganda costs money.
Yeah,
These
it's
these
not
Russians don't care about
possible,
Bangladesh, but
Jyoti
they
bhai.
take the money, right?
Yeah,
So,
you are just putting it as an assumption. It's not assumption. It's a decided thing because the online activists of Awami League, they have declared it openly that, okay, we are declaring an information war and let's see how you will fight that thing. That is their declaration, this is no more assumption or that we are thinking. That is the declaration of online activists of Awami League. So we know that thing. Now we need to know how to fight these things. So yeah, let me go back to Shafiqul Bhai about
yeah.
the issue that we wanted to discuss, the political narrative of our independence, our freedom fight from Mujib to Hasina regime. See, I didn't use the word Bangabandhu. I didn't use the word Sheikh in terms of that because this is a notion. It's not about disrespecting, it's about not respecting or not putting an idea in such a superior way so that we cannot debunk or we cannot debate anything. So let's go to you, Shafiq Bhai. How do you perceive our notion or the Awami League narrative of our independence and freedom fight from Sheikh Mujib to Sheikh Hasina? Shafiq Bhai.
Yeah, it's a huge, it's a big topic, but right at the beginning, like when you said that you didn't mention Bangabandhu with Sheikh Mujib, just mention his name. That's very natural, isn't it? Like when you go in all the countries, when in USA people may mention the name of George Washington, nobody says that the father of the first president, father of the nation, or the commander of the independence army. Nobody mentions when Churchill, he said the great Churchill or anything. They just call Churchill as if he's the guy next door. And it's not that the people disrespect. Like there are a lot of English people who very much respect Churchill. Like you know that he has been voted like probably the second or the third most greatest Britain in the last 1,000 years. Like in the famous BBC program.
No, he was voted the greatest in the
Oh,
BBC.
he was the greatest. No,
Yeah.
no, no. He was the greatest. Yeah. So like yeah, Shakespeare came second probably, or Newton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot. But you know that a lot of British people are very emotional about Churchill. But they call him about Churchill, and in all most other countries, even in India, yeah, they call him Mahatma Gandhi. But people also call him Gandhi. Just Gandhi, the Gandhi ji, Gandhi. But nobody tries to be a big apple. হাজার বছরের শ্রেষ্ঠ মহানায়ক শ্রেষ্ঠ বাঙালি জাতির জনক শেখ মুজিবুর বঙ্গবন্ধু শেখ মুজিবুর রহমান. But why do Awami League insist on that? It's a very plainly I see it in our religious angle, like they want to establish that Awami League and has a special claim on Bangladesh because they brought independence to us, and this is something miraculous, something divine. They are not like equal to all other parties. They want to establish that their claim on Bangladesh is different than all other parties. They want to establish that, and that's why these are the things that insist very much on, like almost totally religiously, that you have to insist on Bangabandhu and all these dates of like a calendar from 7th March to his birthday, his return from London in 1972, then 15th August, and all these days they have to be celebrated like a because of like a almost like a religious calendar in there, because they want to establish their special claim on Bangladesh like that. And we have seen that that has been the main contention. It became more and more grotesque, bizarre with Awami League regime in the last 15 years. Like even people like Mahfuz Anam, the article that we are mostly talking about, he mentioned that how like almost in every corner of Bangladesh, particularly the Mujib Centennial was like a very almost total like a what could you say, like almost like a Borat like show, like of like extravaganza or like a Central Asian kind of show like that. And thankfully because of COVID it was like a curtailed. Can you imagine if COVID didn't happen, what would have happened in the Centennial? Like how many more millions or billions of dollars would have been wasted, and like what would have been happened to that Centennial if the COVID didn't happen? So this is because like Mujib, establishing Mujib as a religious founding father of Bangladesh is the main principal ideological claim of Awami League. It's they do not rest on any other claim. Like they have discarded like সমাজতন্ত্র, socialism long ago. They just put lip service to it. Yes, they have put a lip service to secularism, but we have seen that for for political purpose, they can easily go to Hefajat or any other religious parties or accommodate any kind of law if that's politically expedient to them. So they have no other ideology now except for that, like the 1971 and the Mujib as the father of the nation. So this is the thread that connects from 1971 to 2024 throughout this all this time. And I think therein lies the main source why it's still so important.
Yeah, but how do you get from 1972 to 1975, like as the entire political history of Awami League, it looks like that they don't want to have a conversation on that specific time period. It looks like that it's under a bracket, and let's not talk about that. Let's only glorify the achievement or the false fabricated vibe or the notion of Sheikh Mujib or the Awami League, etc. How do you perceive that specific time period, and what is the relationship between, even if I take, okay, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman he played a really important role in 1971 independence or freedom fight. How do you perceive in relation to just after that math, just aftermath of independent, what was his role and why we feel so much confused to talk about that?
Okay, I will speak shortly, and then I think Jyoti has also points to add that. Um, uh, because yeah, we know that in from 1970 to 1975, a lot of things happened that discredited this legacy of Sheikh Mujib. He was plainly failed in like consolidating the independence of the country, uh, put Bangladesh on a stable footing, and particularly the 1973 famine, and that totally destroyed the confidence of the middle and upper middle class on upon the ability of Sheikh Mujib. And he was, although Mujib was not plainly as egomaniac as Hasina, but still he had a very outsized view of himself. Like he didn't, he wanted to be a prime minister, but he didn't have a democratic bone in his body. We know that the 1972, 1973 election, the first election in Bangladesh, that too was heavily rigged. He was going to win it 200 plus absolute majority probably anyway, but still they rigged it massively because they didn't they thought that any kind of vote against them is a vote against is kind of sacrilege, a blasphemy to them. So all the things, my point is that all the things that we have seen in full blown Hasina's regime after 2015, all these seeds were there in Awami League in before. Like Mujib was not democratic. He also had like a personality card. And I tell that Tajuddin Ahmed, the man who saw Mujib closest and who was probably the who was his second in command, the most important person after him. From his anecdotes, we know that how people felt like that. We know that famous episode like where Mujib often, like Hasina, used to say, if you don't, do you want me to resign? Okay, I will go and resign. He said like that. We know that how Tajuddin went out and say one other person asked him like what happened bhai, like Mujib is threatening to resign. Tajuddin just smiled and said, do you really believe that? Do you think that he's going to happen? Like he said that like he says things like that like as a joke and like that. And also we know that after Mujib implemented the Bakshal, Tajuddin directly said to him that you have like not only closed the you have not only killed like Awami League, you are going to also kill yourself or something to the effect, because they all saw where the country was heading. Unfortunately, Sheikh Hasina had no Tajuddin to warn him of like that. But I feel like that all these things that we saw in full bloom in after 2015 to 2024, these things were there in the Awami League's DNA right at the 72 to 75 regime. And like that. Um, yeah, Jyoti may add to that.
Yeah, Jyoti bhai, yeah, but I know you will add something. Just let me pocket a question to you. Um, yeah, there is a historical legacy between with Sheikh Mujib and the Sheikh Hasina's ruling structure, or the way they behave as a ruler. So like people like Shafiq Bhai are people like, okay, we not me, like people who know the history are easily can, or maybe analytical and perceive that thing. My question is that if the history completely written down by the prominent activist of Awami League politician, at least whatever we saw, the most popular history comes from them, then how does the relationship, just the way relationship Shafiqul Bhai related those two, how this is even possible? And here I really want to mention for our audience, or my Jyoti Bhai, you can start with that for our listener, that what is Bakshal and what exactly happened at the time of that period for our listeners. Like most probably, if I'm not wrong, Sheikh Mujib keep only four newspaper, which was on favor of him, and closed down all the newspaper. He trackled down all the political party in one political party and start to call it Bakshal. And there is Rokhi Bahini to build up this Rokhi Bahini. He also cut down the army, and at least also try to cut down the army policy and procedure and every other aspects. It is assuming that maybe that was one of the reason he got killed, because of the policy that he took for the army, if I'm not wrong, Jyoti Bhai. So all this context I'm putting on your pocket for the discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, right. So let's just go through some of the basics of 72 to 75. So Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, uh, before the war, Awami League wins the election in 1970. It's not just a single largest party. They basically won 290 seats in East Pakistan Assembly, and out of 300, 160 seats out of 162 from East Pakistan in the national. So basically, it was all Awami League, and that was elected. Okay, so there is no question that they had massive mandate. The war happens. So it's a big debate why Sheikh Mujib did not participate in the war, but it's fact that he did not participate in the war. There's no dispute. We can have a discussion, debate. There's a huge why he did it, was it right or wrong? But he wasn't there. He comes back in January, okay, in 72. When he comes back, there is no question from anyone that he should be the man leading the country. Okay, that's also a fact, right? So during the war, people who led the war, Tajuddin Ahmed was the prime minister, Nazrul Islam was the president. So these were Awami League leaders. There were people in the army that mutinied, Pakistan army people who revolted against Pakistan army, and they formed the core of Mukti Bahini. So people like Ziaur Rahman, Khalid Musharraf, and so on. Osmani was a retired officer who was the chief, appointed as the army chief during the war. So these people were there. There were student activists, youth activists from Awami League, from left parties, and non-political people who just joined. Popular. It was a popular war, resistance. Farmers, laborers, and so on. So there were all of these people who participated, but none of them said we want to get to power. They all said yes. Sheikh Mujib is the national leader. He has the mandate. It's natural that he should go to power. Maulana Bhashani, who was the other major political leader before independence, actually said publicly that Mujibur has the mandate. He will be I bless him to lead the nation. So there was, again, no question that Sheikh Mujib should be the leader. In 72, he becomes the leader. A constitution is framed, and then an election is held in 1973. And this is the one that Shafiq already mentioned. This election in 1973, if it was held peacefully and fairly, Awami League probably would have won a massive landslide. Okay, out of 300 seats, 2/3, 240, 250. I mean, there wasn't any large enough opposition to challenge Awami League, to defeat Awami League. That was not even on the cards. Even in their wildest dreams, nobody in the opposition believed they would win. But they felt that they would win a few dozen seats where individual candidates could win. And Mujib could not even allow that. Right? He would not even allow anyone to contest against him in Lalbagh. So he went and, or like, his agents went and made sure that he was elected unopposed by intimidating individuals from contesting against him. Okay. So this was the reality of 1973 election. Look, the war was devastating. Okay, so this is something hard for us to imagine because we weren't even born at that time. But 20% of the economy was destroyed. Okay, um, all bridges, roads, culverts, everything was destroyed, all across the country. All factories were destroyed. So this was a massive problem. So obviously, Mujib faced a lot of problem, and he compounded that through corruption, through poor administration, and all of these things. There was a famine in 1974. After that, he declared a state of emergency. And then he amended the constitution, became the president. He banned all political parties other than a national party. So he turned Bangladesh into a one party state. It's not just that he became a president, all right? The constitution was amended and said that in future presidents would be directly elected from this one party. However, this is not going to apply to Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman because he's the father of the nation. He's going to become president unelected. So, where they amended the constitution to choose one in, like, sort of, this is not just saying that we're going from a multi-party parliamentary democracy to one party state. That is bad enough. This is going beyond that. This is basically putting a crown on him, saying, sort of, that he doesn't even need to be elected, and nobody can say anything about this. Yes, the media was heavily curtailed. Only 4 newspapers were allowed. Everything else was shut down. Um, all public servants. So this is again using the constitutional mechanism to politicize the administration, right? All public servants, all senior public servants, army officers, police officers, university academics had to join the National Party. So this was totalitarianism in its full sense of the word, right? Sort of even in party states like Soviet Union or China, you wouldn't get this level of enforcement, sort of. So, yeah, so sort of that was what Bakshal was, and this was in 1975. Um, there is some books mention that the morning that he was actually killed on 15th of August, that day he was supposed to go to Dhaka University for a program, and his student wing, the Chhatra League, were to announce or demand or anoint him as president for life in that event. So, sort of it's ironic that, his life was cut short before he was to be announced president for life.
That's a completely new information to me. Yeah, that would be such a fascinating thing that okay, get Sheikh Mujib as a lifetime president of Bangladesh, and now we can see that. Yeah, Shafiq bhai, you want to add something? It looks like, yeah.
You are on mute. You are muted.
You're muted, Shafiq bhai.
So
Yeah.
sorry about that. Yeah, we may think that this is a cliche. This is like too much banal to talk of Awami League as a kind of religious like party, not a normal party. But these all things indicate to that. Like for me, why Mujib was like he didn't want to go through an election because mayor election is like a for a mortal thing. Mayor election doesn't hold to an individual like to him, to a father of nation like he's not a mere mortal. These are the things that Awami League and also he wanted to establish. The point is that like in Bakshal prohibitions and other prohibitions, we all know that whenever you establish any constitution or anything, you got to make prohibition what happens to the change of power, what happens to the change of direction, thing like that. But Mujib wanted to foreclose that he couldn't even think of any succession, any change in power, what will happen to that. And as Jyoti said that there was plan to declare him for president for life. and it's not a laughing or joking matter that it would have surely would have happened if something like 15th August wouldn't have happened, because we have seen like in the last few years how a lot of army people have said that why do we need elections? We can declare Hasina prime minister for life or head of president for life, and a lot of Awami League people wouldn't mind that, like because although Hasina didn't gain the same stature as Sheikh Mujib, but yeah, for them like Mujib is not a mere mortal, not a mere Bangladeshi. He is like a providential, so that's why his status is like a so extraordinary.
Yeah, like the people we lived in Bangladesh for last 15 years, at least, I think, even though we are not in there in 1970s, but we exactly know what you guys are talking about, what this literature and history is talking about, because we lived that life of Sheikh Hasina regime. Anyway, thank you so much to you, Shafiqul Bhai. Thank you so much, Jyoti Bhai. That was utterly a pleasure to having this discussion. Hopefully, yeah, we'll be here with some other guests with some other topic. Thank you so much, everyone. Talk to you later. Bye. Take care.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Bye.